Hey you, and welcome. In this video, we will take a look at the syntax and file of JavaScript. So let's dive right into it. I have a sample.js file that I wrote to show a sample of what a JavaScript file would look like, and I've opened that in VS Code. And a JavaScript file typically is written from top to bottom, and that's how it will be executed. And it's in English, so it's left to right. And in JavaScript, we would write comments for some of the files. So we can see at the top, we have a comment. It's a multi-line comment. And to start a comment, you can do a multi-line comment especially would be a /*. So we can do /*. That's a multi-line comment. And we can end it with */. And whatever comment goes in the middle, you can write, and it's multi-line, so it continues. A single line comment, which is on line number 9 right now, that is just a //. And if I write a comment and go to a next line, if I write something, it is in different color. Reason for that is because it's part of JavaScript file. That means it will be executed. Comments are ignored. However, the code will be executed. So that's what a single line comment would look like. There's another comment for multi-line, which is a **, which is the one I prefer. If I do /*, you can see that VS Code is helping me out, finishing my comment with a */. If I press enter, it automatically adds some comment for me based on the function, and I can keep adding more lines and comments. It's just a little bit better than a regular multi-line comments with the /*. Just a preference thing. Of course, both of them work, and comments are ignored by JavaScript when they're executing it. So it's mainly just for humans to interact with each other. When somebody else is looking at your code, if there's something that is not explained in the code, you can just write a comment and explain that a little further. As you can see on line number 16, size 18 for a bottle, that is in ounces, as you can see. But that doesn't mean anything to the code, but it means a lot to whoever may be reading it. And same thing on line number 20 and 21, the measurement is in inches. Next, let's talk about indentation in the file. As you can see, we have some spaces at the beginning of some lines, but not the others. Like line number 14 has no spaces in the beginning, but line number 11 has 2 spaces. Line number 20 has 4 spaces. What do these mean? That's what an indentation in a file would look like, and it's only for other developers to read the file in a much more user-friendly way. Computer doesn't care about that. A computer could easily execute a JavaScript without any spaces. That's usually what happens. It's called minified JavaScript, and we don't need any spaces, any line breaks, and it could just execute this one line all in one shot. But for humans, we need to be able to read that properly. So we add something called a style guide. And the style guide would say that there should be a space in the beginning of =2 and at the end of the =2. Parentheses should not have spaces, but if there's a curly like this, then there should be spaces. That's called a style guide, a preference of what your project should look like. So we are all on the same project, are writing the same kind of code. Nobody's writing code differently than the other people. And that's what indentation would help with too, is readability. So you can see on line number 10, that's a function update bottle, and that function has a body, and the body is indented with 2 spaces. So we know there's a function declaration and the body is just one line. If there were more lines, you can read that easily, that these 3 different lines would be body of the function. And same thing on line number 20, we have 4 spaces here. And the reason for that is because the parent is the bottle object, but then there's another child called dimensions that has 2 spaces, and dimensions has 2 children that would have 4 spaces. So it keeps indenting further and further, makes it look like a waterfall. All right, so that's indentation and style guide in JavaScript files. Next, the semicolons. You can see in all over the place under line number 11, line number 12, we have semicolons, and line number 34 has semicolon as well. JavaScript doesn't care about semicolons. It does support them, but it's optional. You can opt out of it. And in some cases you would. In my case, I work with semicolons, so that's why my style guide says that. And if I was to save it, it will put the semicolons back. Is because my VS Code is set up in a way that when I save the file, it will format automatically using the style guide that I work with. And in this case, the style guide says I need semicolons. But a JavaScript code will still work if you don't put semicolons at the end of it. It depends on the style guide of the project you're working on. And similar to how semicolon are optional, single quotes and double quotes are interchangeable in JavaScript. So let me show you what I mean. On line number 15, right here. We have double quotes because I prefer to work with double quotes for string values, but you could easily replace these with single quote and the code will still work. And that's because single quote and double quote work exactly the same way in JavaScript. Now, when we talk about string interpolation in the later videos, you will see how they may differ, but the functionality is still the same. They are used for string values, and that's why you can work with either or. I just prefer to work with double quotes. Next, let's run our JavaScript code. There are two ways that I'll show you. Of course, there's more than two ways, but two ways that I would say we would work with. One of them, I'll just copy the whole code here. So I did Command A to select the whole file content, Command C to copy it, and I'll head over to my Firefox. In my Firefox, I will open the developer tools. So right click, inspect, or if you know the keyboard shortcut, you can just do Command Option K. And that will do the same thing. Head over to the console tab of the developer tools, and you would see that there are two arrows pointing right. That's where you can start executing some JavaScript. And I'll start with just a simple example without pasting my code right now. I'll just say, show me an alert. That's a JavaScript alert. Hello world, like this. Press enter, and you can see on my browser, hello world alert showed up, and I can press OK to get rid of it. So that's how you would interact with it. But of course, it's all one line only. But remember, our code can all be one line. The JavaScript transpiler doesn't care about that. So if I paste my code in here and press enter, and that should execute my code. However, nothing happened. It gave me an undefined output. And the reason for that is because our code doesn't really output anything. It just instantiated an object, and we can interact with that object. And that object is bottle. So if I was to just find what a bottle object looks like, that's the bottle object. I can make it bigger. I can see what's inside it, and there is a lid open boolean, true or false, that I can work with here. So I can say bottle lid open. What is the value of that? And it will tell me it's set to false right now. And if I was to change it, bottle.toggle lid, that's a function there, and I can say toggle it to true. And if I was to go and execute that previous command again to say bottle.lid open, what is the value of that? I can do it two ways. Either I can write it down again, or I can press up key, and that would give me the history of what I've written so far. In this case, toggle lid, or I can press it again up, and we can see that now bottle lid open is showing, and it's already showing me true at the bottom. But I'm just gonna press enter so it gives me the value and writes it down into the console, and we can see that lid open is set to true. And I can do the same thing again where I do toggle lid, and this time I set it to false, and then give me the value again, and lid open is false. So that's how you execute JavaScript code in the browser directly. You don't really need an IDE to work with that. Now, the second option I want to show you is the one in the IDE. It would be just easier so we don't have to keep copy pasting the code and it stays in the IDE while we write our code. So let me show you how that works. So if I go over to my VS Code, let's go to the marketplace, the extensions marketplace right there, and search for Quokka. I think it's Quokka or double K. Right there. Okay, perfect. So Quokka.js, that's the extension you want to download. Click on that and install it. I've already installed it. That's why it's showing me uninstall option, but you go ahead and install that. Once you've installed it, I'll close this up, hide my file explorer. Once you've installed it, you can do Command Shift P and search for Quokka.js. And it has a few options. You can start a new JavaScript file to work with, or you can work with the current JavaScript file that you have open. In this case, that's the one I'll select. So I'll press enter, and you'll see a terminal open up, and it's just firing up the environment. This is optional, of course. I'll close it up. And you can see a few squares showed up on the left-hand side. There's a green, there's a gray one, and there's a green one. So that's how you know Quokka is enabled in your file. And if I was to just enter a new line and same commands that I wrote in the browser console, I can write them here. So I can say, show me what a bottle looks like. And you can see that it's showing me on the right-hand side. That's what a bottle object looks like. I can say, show me what a bottle.lid open looks like. Now in Quokka, it won't really show because that's a paid option. So I'll just assign it to a value, and actually let's call it let is open equals to, and then we can show is open value, and there we can see it is set to false right now. And if I was to just do the same thing, bottle.toggle lid, set it to true, and do the same thing again is open equals to bottle is open. Oh, sorry, bottle lid open. Right there. And then show me what the is open would look like now. And it's set to true. And same way we can work with that in our IDE. The benefit of that is just we stay within our IDE and we don't have to keep switching over to the browser. And in some cases, Quokka might work better than the browser because we still have access to our IDE spaces, indentations, style guide, and all that. All right, I'll take that away and save my file. Now, when we learn JavaScript for the first time, our first introduction to it was very basic. We worked with variables and then functions, then some advanced topics. However, with the popularity of frameworks like React and Vue, introduction to JavaScript is usually with some advanced objects and methods. So for this reason, I have chosen to turn our course on its head. We will start with learning the objects and methods, then talk about different data types and the DOM, and finally cover methods, functions, and events at the very end. This means as we make our way through this course, I'll often introduce concepts that we haven't covered yet, so you can see them in real context first and then learn about the basics later. All right, with that out of the way, I'll see you all in the next video.